The afternoon sun filtered through the dusty windows of the Wing Tsun Academy in Wanchai, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floors where generations of martial artists had trained. The rhythmic thudding of fists against wooden dummies echoed through the space, a meditation in motion that had remained unchanged for decades. In the corner, almost invisible among the equipment, Jackie Chan worked methodically on the Muk Jong, his movements so fluid they seemed to flow like water around the wooden arms. The dummy stood like an ancient sentinel, its weathered surface polished smooth by countless hours of training. Jackie's hands moved in precise patterns, Tan Sao, Pak Sao, Lap Sao, each technique flowing seamlessly into the next. His breathing was steady, almost musical, as he lost himself in the familiar rhythm. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his expression remained peaceful, focused, as if the outside world had ceased to exist. The tranquility shattered when three men pushed through the academy's entrance, their voices cutting through the sacred silence like broken glass. They were local troublemakers, the kind who frequented underground fighting circles and considered themselves the unofficial guardians of real martial arts. The leader, a bulky man with scarred knuckles and a sneer permanently etched on his face, spotted Jackie immediately. "Well, well, well," the leader announced loudly, his voice dripping with mock surprise. "Look what we have here, boys. The famous Jackie Chan, slumming it with us real fighters." His companions, one tall and lanky with nervous energy, the other short and stocky with arms crossed defensively, flanked him like eager students waiting for approval. Jackie continued his training, his movements never faltering, though his peripheral vision tracked every step they took. The wooden dummy absorbed each strike with its characteristic hollow thok, a sound that had become as natural to him as his own heartbeat. He had encountered this type before, men who confused aggression with skill, noise with strength. The trio moved closer, their footsteps deliberately heavy on the wooden floor. "Hey, movie star!" the tall one called out, throwing shadow punches at the air with exaggerated movements. "Show us some of those fancy camera tricks." They erupted in laughter, the sound harsh and grating in the peaceful space. Jackie's hands never stopped moving against the wooden arms, but something shifted in his posture. A subtle straightening of the spine, an almost imperceptible adjustment of weight distribution. The other students in the academy began to take notice, some pausing their own training to watch what would unfold. "I bet he can't even throw a real punch," the stocky one added, bouncing on his toes like a boxer. "Probably needs a stunt double just to tie his shoes." More laughter, louder now, fueled by what they perceived as Jackie's unwillingness to engage. The leader stepped forward, emboldened by his companion's encouragement. "What's wrong, Chan? Cat got your tongue? Or are you too scared to face someone without a script?" He began throwing punches at the air near Jackie, each one coming progressively closer, testing boundaries like a playground bully. Jackie completed another sequence on the Muk Jong, his breathing still controlled, still centered. But those who knew him well might have noticed the slight tilt of his head, the way his shoulders settled into a more natural fighting stance while maintaining the appearance of casual training. "Maybe we should give him something to really practice with," the tall one suggested, cracking his knuckles theatrically. "I mean, that piece of wood isn't going to fight back, is it?" The academy had grown quieter now, other practitioners stopping their training entirely to observe. The owner, an elderly Sifu with decades of experience, watched from behind the front desk with the calm expression of someone who had seen this scenario play out many times before. He made no move to intervene, sensing that sometimes the best lessons came from unexpected moments. Jackie's final sequence on the Muk Jong ended with a gentle palm strike that barely disturbed the air around the wooden dummy. He stepped back, finally turning to face his uninvited audience for the first time. His expression was serene, almost friendly, with just a hint of amusement dancing in his eyes. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, his voice carrying easily across the now silent academy, "I hope you're not here to cause any trouble. This is a place of learning, not fighting." The leader's sneer widened. "Learning? The only thing I want to learn is whether the great Jackie Chan is as soft in person as he looks on screen." He took another step forward, his fists beginning to clench. Unaware that he was about to discover exactly how much trouble three overconfident men could find themselves in when they underestimated the wrong person on the wrong day. The moment hung suspended like a held breath, tension crackling through the academy's air like electricity before a storm. Jackie remained perfectly still, his hands relaxed at his sides. But something had shifted in his bearing, a subtle change that veteran martial artists recognized as the difference between a man at rest and a master ready for anything. "You want to see some real kung fu?" The leader growled, mistaking Jackie's silence for fear. He pulled back his right arm, telegraphing a haymaker punch that would have been devastating against an ordinary person. But Jackie Chan was far from ordinary. What happened next unfolded so quickly that several witnesses would later argue about the exact sequence of events. The leader's fist shot forward, aimed directly at Jackie's jaw. But Jackie wasn't there anymore. In a movement so fluid it seemed to defy physics, he dropped into a backward somersault, his hands briefly touching the wooden floor before he rolled completely over and sprang back to his feet, now 3 steps away from where he'd been standing. The leader's punch met empty air with such force that his momentum carried him stumbling forward, directly into the path of one of the hanging heavy bags. The impact sent the bag swinging wildly, its chain creaking ominously above. "Impossible," the tall one whispered, his earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist. But Jackie was already moving again, not toward his attackers but toward the equipment scattered around the academy. The leader recovered his balance and charged again, his face flushed with embarrassment and rage. This time, both his companions joined him, convinced that 3 against 1 would surely overwhelm even Jackie Chan. Jackie reached for a simple folding chair, the kind used by students to rest between training sessions. In his hands, it became something entirely different. As the tall attacker swung wildly, Jackie opened the chair with a sharp snap and used its metal frame to catch the man's wrist between the seat and backrest. A gentle twist, and suddenly the attacker found himself spun around and seated in the chair, confused and disoriented. "Stay seated," Jackie said with a slight smile, giving the chair a gentle push that sent it rolling across the smooth floor toward the wall. The stocky attacker tried to grab Jackie from behind, but found himself embracing nothing but air as Jackie dropped low and swept his leg, sending the man tumbling. As he fell, Jackie caught him gently and guided his descent onto a stack of training mats, turning what could have been a painful fall into an almost comfortable landing. "Soft landing," Jackie quipped, patting the man's shoulder reassuringly. But the leader wasn't finished. He grabbed a wooden staff from the weapons rack, swinging it like a baseball bat. The weapon whistled through the air where Jackie's head had been a split second earlier. Jackie had rolled under a wooden training horse, popping up on the other side with a jump rope in his hands. What followed was a display of improvisation that would have impressed even the most jaded stunt coordinators. Jackie used the rope like a lasso, catching the staff mid-swing and wrapping it up until the leader couldn't pull it free. Then, with a move that seemed borrowed from both kung fu and playground games, he began jumping rope while still holding the other end, the rhythmic slapping of the rope against the floor creating an almost musical beat. "Jump rope is great exercise," Jackie observed conversationally, never breaking rhythm. "Very good for footwork and timing." The leader, frustrated beyond reason, released the staff and charged with his bare hands. This proved to be his final mistake. Jackie released the jump rope, caught the falling staff with his left hand, and in one continuous motion, vaulted over it like a gymnast using a pole vault. He landed behind the leader, who spun around to find Jackie holding out a water bottle. "You look thirsty," Jackie said with genuine concern. "All that aggressive energy must be dehydrating." The entire confrontation had lasted less than 2 minutes, but it felt like witnessing a masterclass in controlled chaos. The 3 attackers found themselves sitting in various corners of the academy, one in a rolling chair looking dizzy, one on a pile of comfortable mats looking confused, and their leader standing face to face with Jackie Chan, who was offering him hydration with the same casual friendliness he might show to any training partner. The academy had fallen completely silent except for the gentle creak of the still swinging heavy bag. Other students stood frozen, some with their mouths literally hanging open, watching a scene that would be retold in martial arts schools for years to come. But Jackie wasn't finished. Setting down the water bottle, he walked back to the mukjong where this had all started, resuming his training position. His breathing was still perfectly controlled, not even slightly labored, despite the acrobatic display he'd just performed. "You know," he said, addressing the 3 men while beginning another set of techniques on the wooden dummy, "I'm always looking for good stunt performers for my films, people who aren't afraid to take a few bumps, who have good energy, who can bring intensity to a scene." He paused in his movements, turning to look at them with a grin that transformed his entire face. "You 3 have excellent dramatic timing." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap, every person in the academy processing what they had just witnessed. The three would-be troublemakers sat or stood in their respective positions, looking like students who had just failed a test they didn't know they were taking. Jackie continued his methodical practice on the mukjong, each movement flowing with the same peaceful precision as before, as if the last few minutes had been nothing more than a brief intermission in his training routine. You want us in your movies?" the leader finally managed, his voice stripped of all its earlier aggression. The question emerged with the wonder of a child being offered candy, completely at odds with the menacing figure he'd been moments before. Jackie completed another sequence, his palms creating that familiar hollow percussion against the wooden arms. "Why not?" he replied, never breaking rhythm. "You have passion. You're not afraid of physical contact, and you certainly know how to make an entrance." His eyes twinkled with mischief. "Though we might need to work on your exit strategies." The tall attacker slowly stood up from where he'd been deposited on the mats, brushing dust off his clothes with newfound humility. "But we just tried to test my skills," Jackie interrupted gently, finally stepping back from the wooden dummy. "Consider it an audition. In my films, we do take after take until we get it right. Sometimes people get knocked down, sometimes they get back up, sometimes they need a different approach entirely." He gestured toward the three of them. "You all demonstrated commitment to your roles." The owner of the academy approached slowly, his weathered face creased with what might have been a smile. In Cantonese, he murmured something to Jackie that made the actor bow respectfully in return. Then, in English for everyone to understand, the old master spoke. "This is why we train, not to defeat others, but to transform conflict into understanding." Jackie nodded thoughtfully. "My Sifu used to tell me that the highest level of martial arts isn't about winning fights, it's about preventing them. But sometimes," he grinned, "you have to show people a different perspective first." The stocky attacker finally found his voice. "I've seen all your movies, man, every single one. But seeing you move in person..." He shook his head in amazement. "That wasn't movie magic. That was pure skill." "Movies and real life aren't so different," Jackie replied, moving to collect the equipment that had been scattered during their impromptu performance. "Both require timing. Both require understanding your environment. Both require working with what you have available." He picked up the jump rope, coiling it neatly. "The difference is that in movies, we plan the chaos. In life, you have to improvise." One by one, other students in the academy began to applaud. It started with slow, uncertain claps from a young woman practicing forms in the corner, then spread like ripples across water until the entire space filled with genuine appreciation. The three former antagonists found themselves swept up in the applause, their faces showing a mixture of embarrassment and pride. The leader cleared his throat, his earlier hostility completely evaporated. "Mr. Chan, we owe you an apology. We came here looking for trouble, and you gave us something much better instead." "No apology necessary," Jackie said, waving dismissively. "But I am serious about the movie offer. Here's my card." He produced a simple business card from his pocket. "Give me a call if you're interested in learning what real stunt work looks like. Fair warning, though, the training is much harder than what we just did." As the three men prepared to leave, transformed from troublemakers to potential colleagues, the tall one turned back with curiosity written across his face. "Mr. Chan, can I ask you something? How did you stay so calm? I mean, we came here spoiling for a fight, and you never even seemed angry." Jackie returned to the mukjong, placing his hands in the starting position for another training sequence. "Anger makes you predictable," he said simply. "Fear makes you clumsy. But when you stay relaxed, when you stay centered, you can see possibilities that others miss." He began another set of movements, his voice carrying easily over the rhythmic sounds. "Besides, getting angry at someone for testing you is like getting angry at water for being wet. It's just what they do." The academy gradually returned to its natural rhythm as the three men left, their exit marked by respectful bows that would have been unthinkable an hour earlier. Students resumed their training, but the energy had changed. There was a sense of having witnessed something special, a lesson that extended far beyond simple martial arts techniques. Jackie continued his practice on the wooden dummy, each strike a meditation, each movement a conversation with centuries of tradition. The late afternoon sun had shifted, casting new patterns of light across the floor, but his focus remained absolute. In the end, that was perhaps the greatest lesson of all. That true mastery wasn't about the spectacular moments, but about the quiet consistency of never stopping the work.